Good evening, everybody. Welcome out to tonight's monthly webinar that we do. We like to do a free webinar every month to two for everybody and anybody that wants to attend, basically. And that's what we're going to be doing tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate you guys attending. And tonight we're going to be talking about tax lien certificates in particular.
Yeah, so you're welcome to ask questions throughout the event. We'll try to find different points there where we can answer questions. Yes, the webinar is recorded, and we can get replays out to everybody. So you don't have to worry about that. You can get the replays on that. You can also ask questions in either the question section or the chat section if you want. Either one is fine. And other than that, just want to thank you for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate you here.
So for starters, like Steve said, we're going to be talking about tax liens tonight. We want to talk about exactly how they work. But before we do that, if you don't really know who Stephen and I am, I'm the person on the right here in this picture. Stephen's the guy on the left. And we basically started with this over 20 years ago. We started off, I guess, originally training-wise with seminar companies before we started tax sale support.
Yeah. Our first initial experience was just by attending an auction, like Shade said, around 20 years ago. When we provided training for seminar companies for quite a few years, it gave us a chance to, hold events and work with a lot of people, but we didn't have a lot of control. So eventually around 2015, 16 or so, we decided to quit working with the seminar companies altogether and just take the program that they had been selling in essentially books and CDs and just making it available through our membership programs to the public.
Yeah, so that's essentially what we've been doing ever since.
Yeah.
So in terms of news and events, before we get started here, we have a one-day actually coming up this Saturday that is open to the public to attend. It's only $49 to attend, and it basically takes place from about 8 a.m. our time until 3 p.m. that day, Saturday. It's pretty much a full day training.
Yeah, so in Pacific time, that would be around 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. and that on the East Coast, that's going to be around 10 a.m. to about 5. So if you'd like to attend, we still have a few spots left. Also, we're going to be holding a 3-day out in Florida in the second week of April 9th through 11th. So if you're interested in coming out and spending 3 days with us, or if you're out in that area, let us know.
Yeah, we'd love to have you. So let's start off. Let's talk about tax liens for a minute, and because really, when we first started with this, tax liens was kind of the term that everybody used for everything. Even though we first became to realize that they weren't all tax liens, but that was kind of what initially was the idea of liens. That initially was the first thing I heard about.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with tax lien certificates, really part of the reason we're talking about this tonight is because there's upcoming auctions. I mean, really, we're kind of starting the tax sale season.
Yeah.
Where we have Arizona starting their auctions now. There'll be a number of different places, New Jersey, that'll continue, but then around May and June, we've got Florida and Ohio and Maryland and so many different areas that are going to be holding tax lien sales, along with the states that holds, like New Jersey, that can hold sales throughout the year.
Yeah. A lot of tax lien sales are going to be annual events in places, and so we're getting into that season where a lot of these places are going to be holding their tax sales. Arizona's already doing it, I think it's a great time to talk about tax liens because they are, they're a fundamental part of property tax enforcement, in a lot of states, and in doing so, create a good investment opportunity.
Yeah, well, in addition to that, the states that I mentioned are just the online auction companies or the online auction states. About live auctions, there's all of these different states where they're still conducting live auctions. They're still going to be having live auctions like in the case of Mississippi and, Nebraska and Montana and Wyoming
Yeah,
and
a lot
all
of the
of these
smaller
other,
counties.
yeah, exactly, where there's going to be opportunity, and some of you guys might live in those states and want to take advantage, or live close to those states and want to take advantage of those live sales.
Yeah, you very well could live in a state that utilizes tax liens and that holds live auctions, once a year to sell off those liens. And if that's the case, it could be a great idea to attend and to buy up some of those liens. Some of the reasons why you might invest in liens is first and foremost, they offer a good high interest rate return, but it's not just that. As everybody knows with investing, it's about the security of the investment, and that's really where tax liens shine.
Yeah, exactly. So as far as tax liens, it gives us the ability to earn a guaranteed interest rate return. And what's awesome about it, or important, is everything is backed by state law. So this is something that's not new. It's really gone on for decades.
Yeah, they're also a very simple investment, which is something that's attractive to a lot of investors because the majority of the time there's not really anything you're going to have to do with them, other than wait.
Yeah.
That's kind of so. Let's talk about exactly what they are and how they work. What exactly is a lien? Because that's really the first thing you have to understand is how a lien works. Once you understand a lien, then you can start to grasp the tax lien side of it. It's basically a legal claim that's placed against property due to some kind of a delinquent bill or an unpaid debt.
Yeah, and usually, except for the mechanics liens, if they're issuing an actual lien, it's going to be government issued.
Yeah, most liens are government issued. Mechanics liens are something like a contractor could issue, if they're doing work, but a lot of the liens that we're going to see are things like tax liens.
Yeah, really, other than mechanics liens, there's really not, anything else would usually be underneath a judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And so with liens, they're usually going to be government related, whether it be through a city, something like a nuisance lien, a state lien, a federal lien, or property taxes, which is probably the most common type of lien.
The most important thing about a lien is that they prevent the transfer of ownership as long as the lien is active against the property. That means you can't close on a house, you can't sell the house, you can't do anything that is going to change, the ownership status on the property until the lien is taken care of. And that's with all liens. They prevent that or stop that from happening. That's, essentially what that lien does. Is it has the power to change, stop you from being able to sell the property or do anything with it until it's paid for. It can also lead to the loss of the property eventually if it's not taken care of.
Yeah, so to collect property taxes and to enforce these taxes, county governments have created a tax lien system where they're going to issue a tax lien certificate on property owners that are delinquent in paying their property taxes.
Yeah, so the purpose in creating these liens and issuing them against the properties with delinquent taxes is so that they can sell something. They have something to sell immediately in a tax sale, which they schedule and invite investors from the public to come and attend. And as investors, you can buy these liens from the county. So in buying the liens, you basically give the county the money they need to operate immediately. In other words, there's all this money that's owed, and what the county has done is figured out a way to collect it immediately, like right now.
Yeah, now as far as tax liens, they're sold on a yearly basis. In fact, I think Shade mentioned that before, that tax lien certificates in most states aren't going to sell them multiple times a year. The person will be a delinquent for usually an entire year, if not a little extra time, and then they'll go ahead and issue a lien on the previous year's back taxes.
Yeah, it's almost always overseen by a treasurer or tax collector. It's usually the same office that's responsible for taxes, in the county. And the liens sales themselves, tax sales themselves, have traditionally been live on-site auctions, but that started to change as the internet became more common. A lot of counties started to move to online auctions because getting people out to sales in some places is a problem.
Yeah, and in most cases, like Shade said, they're going to be held through some type of auction, a public auction. Now, there's a couple of scenarios where some cities have sold all of their liens to one big investor, like in the case of New York. But most counties and cities sell them to the public, and whoever's the highest bidder essentially wins the tax lien certificate.
Yeah, exactly what happens in the county is something that depends upon state law. State law is what determines exactly how property taxes are enforced, and also how foreclosures are executed in that state. Judicial foreclosures, which are the types of foreclosures that counties have to go through in order to basically execute or kick somebody out of a property.
Yeah. Now, as far as tax lien certificates, there's kind of two things to remember. First of all, tax lien certificates are going to earn an interest rate return. So every state is going to have a statute within their law that's going to dictate how much that tax lien certificate's going to earn. Now, in addition to that, tax liens also earn their interest on an annual basis. So if they're earning 18%, you're essentially earning 1.5% per month. So if you had a tax lien that got redeemed after 6 months and you were earning 18%, you would only earn 9%. You're going to earn up until that tax lien redeems at an annual basis.
Yeah. Also, what states will generally do is they'll set a maximum range, and then bidding basically can begin there. And so, there's usually a range there, but how much you pay or the exact rate of return you get depends on the competition at the auction and what you set your minimums at.
Yeah. Now, in addition to that, states are also going to have a redemption period. And really, the redemption period is the time frame that the property owner has to repay those taxes. Now, that redemption period is really can range. In most tax lien certificates, it's going to be between 2 to 4 years. In some cases, it can be as little as 1 year, like in the case of South Carolina.
Yeah, the most important thing to remember about the redemption period is that it's set out in state law and it begins on the date of the sale. And that's true even if the tax lien doesn't sell at the auction. That redemption period still begins on that date either way.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of what we'll get into here a little bit. If you're buying an over-the-counter tax lien, you're already buying that into the redemption period.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, on the day of the sale, there are 3 things that happen. Okay. The tax lien is issued against the property. That redemption period begins, and as that begins, it begins to accrue interest as well.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, after purchasing the tax lien, really 2 scenarios are going to happen. Either the property owner is going to pay us back, or they're not going to pay us back.
Yeah, it's really as simple as that. And the vast majority of the time, this is the scenario that plays out. Somebody, is delinquent with their property taxes, but eventually they pay it off, before the redemption period expires. Or whenever they pay it off. Let's say after the redemption period expires, or even if you're in the process of trying to foreclose on it, you can always pay off your bills. It just means the later you pay it off, the more penalties and fees there are. But when you pay that off, what the county does is they will basically cut a check to the investor for their initial investment plus any interest that they earn.
Yeah, and this is going to happen 95% of the time. It's just going to result in checks coming into the mail. You are going to get redeemed. Now, it's actually may not be checks, and in some cases it can be depositing directly into your account, if you purchase it that way. But essentially that's what's going to happen, is you're going to get back your initial investment plus your interest rate return that you've earned, depending on how many months you've held the tax lien. Now, one thing to talk about, we talked about how a tax lien could redeem after 9 months, but if you have a 2-year redemption period, it could go that full 2 years. So you're actually going to earn 18% that first year plus another 18% the second year.
Yeah. In fact, the vast majority of the time, redemption is what happens with liens. We say 95 plus percent of the time, because that's usually what happens, and it's pretty accurate. But the other possibility here is that the owner doesn't pay off the delinquent taxes that are owed, and that redemption period expires. If that redemption period expires, then the lien that you have, it can then be used to foreclose on the property. So essentially, you're either going to get one or the other. You're either going to get a check in the mail, or you're going to have the rights to foreclose on the property. You have the ability to foreclose on it.
Yeah, well, and even though it is rare, it still does happen quite a bit. I mean, even if you just look in the case of Florida, how many tax foreclosures go up to auction? Those are properties that have essentially gone through that lien process and they're now being offered as deeds. Now, here's actually a couple results of property ownership. These were both tax lien certificates that were purchased by investors at the tax lien sale and ended up foreclosing on the property. We see the property at the top had a total back tax amount of $9,401, but the property was valued at almost 300 grand.
Yeah, which is crazy. These are numbers you don't see very often, and they're impossible to predict. You don't really know exactly which liens are going to redeem and which ones could potentially result in foreclosure. But when they do, because tax liens are reflective of property taxes, and property taxes are reflective of value, what you're normally looking at are just amazing home runs in terms of the investment versus value.
Yeah, well, and the property on the bottom, had around $30,000 in back taxes and had a value of over 600,000. And so, each one of these properties, now there is additional cost. There's going to be foreclosure costs, so there may be an additional $2,000 to $5,000 in going through the tax lien foreclosure process, having an attorney do that. But in either scenario, the profit return on those really is acquiring properties for literally pennies on the dollar.
Yeah. And part of the reason why Steve says there can be cost involved with foreclosing is because most tax liens only represent a single year's worth of delinquent taxes. And if your redemption period has expired, there can be other liens against the property. So, let's say that you're dealing with some place that has a 3-year redemption period. You could have 2 other lien holders potentially that are there that you would need to pay off, and those liens will prevent the transfer of ownership. So essentially, the county will say to you before you can foreclose on it, property taxes have got to be brought current in order to foreclose on this property. And by doing so, you essentially would pay off the other lien holders. So they may say, you would have to pay X amount of dollars, and when you do so, what's actually happening is the other lien holders are getting redeemed, which has to happen prior to the property being able to be foreclosed on.
Yeah.
So there are different ways that you can buy, tax liens. They are basically either through an auction or what we call over-the-counter. Auctions, however, though, we have on-site or online.
Yeah. Now, with on-site auctions, really, when me and Shade first started, this was the only way that you could buy tax liens, tax deeds, whatever. But even with the pandemic and some of the issues that we've had, there's still states that are holding both tax liens and tax deed foreclosures on-site locations. Now, usually in the past, they used to do it, out in one of the rooms. Now some of them have been doing it outside, but there's still many states that are going to be holding live tax lien auctions.
Yeah. Now there are actually, one of the questions we just got, is where can I find, some of these online auctions? There are a number of different companies that provide, they're auction providers that counties have began to turn to, and then there are some counties that kind of set up their own sites. That's part of what we've done on tax sale support, is try to make some of them a little easier to find.
Yeah, in fact, we'll talk about online auctions just here in a second. But states like Nebraska, Mississippi, Wyoming, Tennessee are conducting on-site auctions. And if you get the chance to attend an on-site auction, it's worth doing it, because that's really the place that you can get the best deals.
Yeah, and what you'll want to find out there is, when the auction is taking place, and what other details that you can get about it. In fact, there are some places around the country that have that may have a relatively small number of liens available, and that may have different ways of offering or selling them that may not even cost you anything in terms of having to bid down the interest rate or something like that.
Yeah.
Smaller sales might give you the opportunities to buy through random selection or some kind of a rotational bidding system. But again, those would be live sales that are going to be happening in smaller counties around the country here.
Now, here's just a couple examples of tax lien certificates that were picked up at live auctions. And that's one of the advantages is you're with a live auction, you're only competing with those local investors. So we see a couple nice tax liens here. One earning 14%, one earning 15.5, and that's because those tax liens got bidded down at the actual live sale.
Yeah, so they were bid down somewhat. Florida is kind of a unique state in how they operate. In some ways, there are great liens to invest in there. But the one thing that we have to worry about there in Florida is there can be up to 7 other liens on the property, up to 7 years worth anyway. That's something we always watch out for, is something, if we're going to have to potentially pay money to foreclose on a property, then we need to be aware of anything we might have to pay in order to do so. And in Florida, it can be more than in a lot of other states.
Yeah, well, and usually, on good properties like this, there's not going to usually be 7, or 6 liens. And so if there is a bunch of liens, usually that's just an automatic indication that there's issues with the property, because these type of tax lien certificates will usually be foreclosed on within 2 to 3 years of purchasing the tax lien, because in Florida, they do have a 2-year redemption period, and the county actually will do the actual foreclosure. Now you need to fill out a form and what's called a deed application, get it submitted, pay a fee, but they'll do the actual foreclosure and put it to a deed sale.
Yeah, in fact, the fact that they'll do the foreclosure for you is not something that every state will do. There are some states that handle it a little bit differently, or they make you do the foreclosure side of it. States like Colorado.
Yeah.
Like Colorado's a state where they don't have a self-executing foreclosure, which means that as the investor, you would hire an attorney to help you, basically execute the foreclosure on the property.
Yeah, and really just a quick tip about attending the live auction. If you go through and do due diligence on the properties, like we teach in our membership program, you actually do the research, you're going to go and be one of the most informed investors there at the auction. And being informed at the auction, knowing what it's what properties are, what it's worth bidding down to, you can actually kind of shape how the auction runs a little bit, because live auctions, any auction is based off emotion, and live auctions, is really where that can get out of control in some cases.
Yeah, but the ability to attend local auctions is something that you should jump on. If you've got local auctions happening there, you'll learn a lot, even if you don't buy anything from it. Just going to attend it and watch it alone will teach you quite a bit.
Yeah, in fact, sometimes if we're attending a live auction, unless there's some properties that we really want to bid on, if the competition or the bidding is, fierce there in the beginning, sometimes it's wise to sit back and wait till near the end of the list, because sometimes people essentially, bid some of that money up there at the beginning of the auction, and there can be deals for opportunities later on.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, something else that we've began to see, and it's actually started probably, quite a few years ago, 15, 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
We started to see online auctions, and that is something that, well, first off, the internet in general has changed real estate investing, and online records, that we can research with counties have changed it. But following that, it was online auctions, and that was also a big game changer. Prior to that, you had to be on site for every auction you wanted to participate in, which would limit your ability to do a lot of auctions. So what we've seen since then, it's been growing, and since the virus, really, it's even more so, because more counties need to be able to hold their sales no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. And we haven't seen a lot of counties postpone their online auctions. They're being held online. They've kind of figured it out now. So most of the counties are holding online auctions. You got Arizona, New Jersey coming up. But then, like we mentioned, starting in May, there's going to be, Florida and a lot of other areas that are going to be having their online sales.
Yeah. So we've got some examples here in in Florida, some other examples here. And these have varying rates of return as well because they were purchased at auction.
Yeah, exactly. The bidding's going to bid down at 0.25% until whoever's able, whatever has the lowest bid. And, these are good examples of tax liens that were purchased at good returns. There's going to be tax liens as well that could bid down to 0%, or 5% or 2% or whatever it is. And that's part of the strategy of tax lien certificates, is looking for those tax liens that are on good property that you can still get in a higher interest rate. If everyone's bidding on the perfect little house with the perfect big house with that's high value, but we could get one on a nice starter home that we're getting a higher interest rate, we're going to buy that because chances are we're never going to own that property. And in Florida cases, there's a real good chance we're never going to own it, because if it is, foreclosed on, it's going to get purchased by the deed investor.
Yeah, Florida is unique in compared to other states. They're a state that has both tax liens and tax deeds. What's different about Florida tax liens, though, is they're sold with a 2-year redemption period, and that's normal enough. But at the end of those 2 years, with most liens normally, you would use the lien and foreclose on the property. In Florida, the county will handle the foreclosure, with the deed application, and so you don't have to deal with that part of it. But in Florida, I'm sorry, drop this thing here. What's different about Florida, though, is that after that time period there, instead of the deed investor, lien investor, sorry, being the one to get the property, what ends up happening is they schedule it for auction. And they're going to offer it up at auction. And if it gets bids, they're going to sell it to that investor and then treat it just like a redemption with that money. So they're going to pay off the lien holders with the money that it gets when it sells. The only way the lien holder will end up with the property in Florida is if it goes to auction and then it doesn't get a bid.
Yeah, and if it doesn't get a bid at the auction, it probably wasn't a lien you shouldn't have bought in the first place.
Yeah.
Because most good property are going to sell at the tax lien auction, the tax deed auction there in Florida, because the opening bid is going to start at just the back taxes. And if they're good property, they'll get foreclosed on within 2 or 3 years of becoming delinquent.
Yeah, so it's essentially how Florida has both liens and deeds, is they issue liens and then they create the deed as they're foreclosing on the property, and they use kind of the auction to sell it off.
Yeah, but states like Arizona, you're going to do the foreclosure, meaning you're going to hire an attorney, because chances are most of us don't have the ability, plus you need to be there in person, and most of us don't live in places where we're buying tax liens. So,
and there are benefits and drawbacks to both systems. I think there can be ways, there can be opportunities in some of those where you may have to get an attorney, but at the same time, you're able to get the property.
Yeah, well, look at those Colorado examples.
Yeah.
So, there's definitely good opportunity out there. This is a quick member testimonial that talked about buying buying tax liens, and a couple of them redeeming, and they made an additional $450 off their $4,300 investment.
Yeah. In fact, tax liens are generally about redemption. It's about earning that high rate of return on a really safe investment. Essentially, when you buy that lien, it's secured by the entire value of that property. And one way or another, you're either going to get that check in the mail or the right to foreclose on the property.
Yeah, now as far as online auctions, many of the auctions will have you deposit a smaller amount, or usually around 10% of how much you're going to invest. And so, it may be worth looking and registering for multiple auctions, or checking out multiple auctions before deciding which one you're going to bid on.
Yeah. In fact, and also, if you don't spend the money, you always get the money returned to you. So you don't have to worry about really about that side of it. A lot of the tax liens you're looking at are longer term investments anyway.
Yeah.
You don't really have a lot of control over tax liens, so it's important to kind of look at them as long-term investments, not going to them looking at them as short-term investments, because basically within that redemption period, you don't really have the control to do anything.
Yeah, and when it comes to tax lien certificates, it really is a numbers game. The more tax liens you bid on, the more tax liens you find, the better chance you're going to get good tax liens at the interest rate that you're looking for.
Yeah, now one thing that happens with a lot of tax sales is investors have a tendency to try to target some of the best eye candy, you could say. You know, when they want to buy liens, you know, they end up trying to buy liens against, you know, just some maybe the nicest homes or what get the most focus and attention.
Yeah, that $400,000 home with a pool could bid down to, you know, to 5% or 2% or something like that, where maybe a $500,000 piece of land, you know, ends up getting bid down to 12%.
Yeah, or you know, maybe has no competition at all.
Yeah.
You know, which that's really what we're talking about, is being open to a lot of these properties. When you're buying liens, you have to look at real estate differently than you do, I think, as a consumer of real estate.
Yeah,
You know?
don't look at it like you are the owner, because you at this point really have no ownership rights. You know, you do have that lien, and that lien is a first position lien, which means they can't sell the property, they can't do anything until it's paid, and it does have foreclosure rights, but until that redemption period ends, you don't have any rights other than just your money and your redemption.
Yeah, you know, what really matters when it comes to liens are the numbers. You know, the value of the property is what ultimately, you know, is the most important factor there. You know, and as long as that property has value securing your investment, you know, then you're doing your job in terms of you know, your due diligence to ensure that your investment's secure.
Yeah.
You know, beyond that, you don't really have a lot of control over whether or not it's going to redeem. You know, and so that's why it's really a numbers game. You know, the more you invest in them, you know, the more likely you are to eventually hit that home run where you're able to foreclose on a fantastic property.
Yeah, definitely true. So, you know, one question we get about online auctions and tax lien certificates is, what is proxy bidding? And really what proxy bidding is, it allows you to pre-enter the maximum interest rate or the minimum interest rate, I guess, depending on how you're looking at it, that you're willing to accept, and then the system itself will go ahead and bid on your behalf.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you place a bid, well, even on eBay, you know, or somewhere like that, where you place a bid for, you know, maybe you're willing to go up to $100, but the bidding is currently
bidding stops at 78.
Yeah, but the bidding stops at 78 because you're, you know, currently the high bidder. It's not automatically going to put your maximum in.
Yeah, so if you were bidding on a tax certificate in Florida, for example, let's say you put a 12% bid, it's going to bid it down as others bid against you. And let's say somebody bids it down to 13%, well, then you would, you know, win the certificate at, you know, 12 point,
Yeah.
my math's going the wrong way, but essentially,
Yeah. Basically, you would win there. You know, yeah, there at your other level. Yeah, essentially, it gives you the ability to, you know, to still get, you know, compete for it. You know, so you're not automatically going to pay that low amount. It's just going to be a matter of whether or not there are competing bids.
Yeah.
Now, over the counter is the term that we use to describe tax liens that were offered at an auction, but for whatever reason didn't sell. You know, these liens after the sale can basically be purchased directly from the county, and we call them over-the-counter liens. You know, there are a couple of things that are important about these. First off, and what maybe most importantly, is when you buy an over-the-counter lien, you automatically earn the maximum rate of return.
Yeah.
So if it's 18%, you earn 18% on that.
Yeah, exactly. That's the reason why after the Florida auctions, those, as soon as those over-the-counters lists get put out, investors go through those lists and pick up the best tax liens within the first 30 days in most cases, is because they're going to be going through hoping to get that 18% interest and looking at tax liens that may have been overlooked because of the thousands available within the sale.
Yeah. In fact, you know, the over-the-counter investing, there are other nice things about it. You know, because you're buying it directly from the county, you know, you do want to buy it as close to when they release that list as you can, but you're also able to kind of do it on your own time as well.
Yeah, well, it's because the redemption period doesn't begins on that day of the sale. So let's say, for example, you know, you purchase a tax lien, like we'll show you here in a second, you know, in like our members did here, where there's a 3-year redemption period, but they may be purchasing it 1 or 2 years into the redemption period. So instead of needing to wait 3 years, they only need to wait a year or 6 months, or sometimes even less than that, before they can start the foreclosure process. Now, Shay talked about earlier about any of those additional tax liens that could be against the property that we may need to pay. There may be additional tax liens on each one of those that we would go ahead and pay off. So for example, in Florida, it has 7 years. Well, each one of those tax liens are going to be essentially going up in interest at the same time. So you're going to need to check to see how much that total amount is before buying it.
Well, it's one of the reasons why over-the-counter investing in Florida for liens is a little bit treacherous, because they're not available throughout the year. So in other words, we could go and take a look at some junk over-the-counter liens, right now that are on the books, there you could buy in Florida. But the problem with them, is you're going to go and find that there is, more money owed in delinquent taxes, penalties, and fees than the property is worth, maybe by double or more.
Yeah. Here are some good examples of tax lien certificates that were purchased by some of our coaching students over the counter. And when we're looking at over the counter tax liens like this, we'll actually look at some different states that a lot of people don't think about. With each one of these tax liens, these aren't huge amounts, $620, $500, up to $1,200, $1,300 in back taxes. And with these tax liens, there was some additional tax liens on them. So may
foreclosing, probably cost a few $1,000s at least.
Yeah. There's probably an additional double the amount, on each one of these tax liens, in additional liens that would need to be paid to foreclose on those properties. But some of these properties you can start foreclosing within 6 months or so. So within 6 months, that property owner is either going to pay you back your money and your interest, especially, once they get word you're starting the foreclosure process. If not, then you're going to get a chance to acquire that property for literally, 3-5 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, it's going
maybe
to be
10 cents.
Yeah, it's going to be a fraction of what the property is valued at. The exact percentage is going to largely depend upon how much they pay in property taxes. Every year, what the percentage is. But more importantly, when we look at the amount that's paid, in terms of liens, these liens represent a small percentage of the property's, estimated value. So we're looking at bid to value ratios. They are impressive with each one of these properties. The liens are, they reflect a very small percentage of the property's overall value.
Yeah, well, and really that's showing the assessed value there as well. So the market value could be, even higher on each one of those properties.
Yeah, there are different ways that you can, you can find over-the-counter opportunities. In Florida, one of the things you can do is research counties in Florida that don't have their over-the-counter liens available online.
Yeah, also, directly after the auction is going to be the best time for any over-the-counter list, whether that be, Florida or Arizona, or even some of the other states that like Nebraska or South Carolina, that may offer over-the-counter liens.
Yeah.
Also, try searching either counties in Florida, like Shade said, that don't have their online auctions, but also states that don't have their online auctions, that don't do online auctions. Those can be great opportunities to go in there and purchase, tax certificates, like in South Dakota or Nebraska or Montana or Wyoming.
Yeah. Also, in a state like Florida, because they have the deed application and the county themselves are the ones that handle the foreclosure process. What it means is that foreclosing is less expensive there than it might be in other states. And what that does is actually enables you to be able to buy lower dollar liens on buildable land in Florida and still have, and still make financial sense.
Yeah, and really, Shade brings up a good point, and this can even apply to online auctions. In fact, if you're going to be competing in the Arizona or the Florida or some of these auctions, and the competition is getting high, try looking especially in a state like Florida, try looking at some of these lower dollar value pieces of land. And when I say lower dollar, I mean $10,000, $20,000 building lots. Because if there's not a bunch of additional taxes, especially if it's a first year lien, so it's the first time it's been delinquent, then that's going to be a good time to pick up that lien. So let's say there's a property building lot that's worth 15 grand and you buy the lien for $250. Well, you know, at $250, worst case scenario, let's say the property owner doesn't pay again next year, and now it's 2 years later, you know, you're going to have maybe $500, $600 in total cost as far as the back taxes to start the foreclosure. Let's say there's another $400 fee in as far as, you know, the deed application cost, whatever is involved. You're into it $1,000, and now you've got this $15,000, $20,000 lot.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, yeah, that's exactly, you know, some of the things we can look for because the foreclosure costs are pretty low.
Yeah, if you've got $1,000 to invest, instead of buying instead of buying one tax lien on a home that maybe you're bidding down to, you know, 5% or 10% or something like that, you could bid on 4 tax lien certificates on, you know, building lots with the first or second year lien, and you know, get a way higher interest. Maybe you're getting 18% or 17% on those liens.
Yeah, yeah. You know, one of the questions here, you know, is how do we, you know, as individual investors compete with these big, you know, financial institutions that, you know, that are willing to put down big money and are always willing to accept a lower rate of return or, you know, pay more money for something. And you know, I guess the reality is we don't, in a way, you know. I mean, we try to find other areas, smaller counties, you know. Yeah, we don't want to compete directly with them, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in other words, there is no point in trying to compete with people that are willing to they're willing to do this and not make any money. And so, yeah, instead we look in other places because really the institutional bidders have been there the whole time.
Yeah, but usually, you know, the big fish is going to the big pond.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, if you're trying to get, let's say that Miami's hot and there's hedge funds that are bidding in, you know, in Miami-Dade County, well, then maybe looking in Manatee County, you know, where there's a less population out, a little bit more in this, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or something like that, where there's going to be less competition. There may not be the big fish in that, you know.
Yeah, it's true. Like for instance, like we were saying, in some of the smaller markets where they don't really have enough liens, you know, to even really be able to support any kind of, you know, big financial institutions. So they're not everywhere, you know, they're just in some places. Yeah, well, we don't want to compete with them, you know, directly. They can't take up all the opportunities. In fact, I would say that they probably have less control now than they ever have over the number of liens, you know, that they're getting or the percentage of the market they're getting. I would say it's probably smaller than it's ever been, you know, because the internet has opened up so much.
Yeah, well, and it's part of our, you know, our membership program, our monthly membership program. You know, we keep all of our students up to date about all of these different, whether it be over-the-counter properties, but also all of the online auctions that are taking place. And, you know, we do a weekly webinar similar to this, where we go over different opportunities that are coming up and kind of talk about some of these different strategies, because these are common questions that we'll get.
Yeah. Yeah, so just to review a few things here. You know, there are a lot of reasons why, you know, liens work out great as investments. You know, ultimately, though, at the end of the day, it's about the county trying to continue to operate and holding that public auction to sell off, you know, those liens so that they can continue to do so. You know, and as investors, they're great investments for us, you know, because they provide that high level of security and they earn, you know, a good rate of return, which is hard to find.
Yeah. You know, a tax lien is a first position lien, and it prevents the transfer of ownership. So that owner can't do anything until they've paid us back. So really, you know, the property is acting as collateral for our debt. So it really is a win-win situation. The property owner gets extra time to pay their property taxes. The county gets the money that they need, and we get an interest rate return. And 95% of the time, that's how it's going to happen. Now, when you do get the kind of properties, let's say somebody's passed away, and there's really nobody left to try to take the property, goes into foreclosure, you acquire the property. Well, in that scenario, you're getting the property for literally a fraction of its value. So even if you only do a couple of, one of those a year and all of the tax liens that you buy, that could be a home run every,
No, yeah, well, really, I think that the objective most of the time when you're buying liens is, at least if you're buying good liens, it's going to be redemption. That's kind of what you have to aim for, because that way you're buying good liens if they're constantly redeeming. If you're buying those type, eventually though, something is not going to redeem because something has come up or something has happened. If you buy enough liens, it's bound to happen.
Yeah.
And when it does, you'll get the opportunity to foreclose on a great property. But primarily, this works great as a long-term, a long-term investment, a way to earn a high rate of return as safely as you can.
Yeah. Should we go take a look at the website real quick?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can jump over here and take a look here at it. Let me pull this part over here. And
so,
oh, okay. Another good question here is when I was saying a good lien, how can you determine what a good lien is? It's a really good question. So first, let's define what a bad lien is. A bad lien would be, let's say that the county issues property taxes against the property, but somebody doesn't want to pay the property taxes because they feel like it's not worth it or they don't want the property. It creates a problem for us if somebody doesn't want the property, because our only real recourse here is to foreclose on the property, right? If somebody doesn't pay it off in time, then we can foreclose on it. But if they don't want the property, you have to ask why. And oftentimes, the only reason why somebody doesn't want a property is because it doesn't have any use or value. And if a property doesn't have any use or value, then you don't want to buy liens against it because there's no point in enforcing anything. You're basically just throwing your money away.
Yeah, a good example would be, let's say that there's a 10-foot by 125-foot section of land between two building lots. You can't build on that. It doesn't have any use. Now, it may have a small potential use to one of the potential property owners, but that's the only person you could sell it for. So we wouldn't buy a tax lien on a property like that because really we don't have the ability to sell it. You need the ability to sell it on the market. You can't just try to sell it to one person. And so when Shay talks about use and value, that's really what we're looking for. We're looking for, does the property usable? Is it buildable if it's a building lot, if it's land, and does it also have a value as well? So, you could go out there and buy tax liens in Arizona, probably this auction, on a property that's worth $500 and has nothing but rattlesnakes and sagebrush out in the middle of the desert. Well, that property, that tax lien, let's say it's only a $50 lien, well, that property still only has $500 value, and it doesn't really have any value or use to us. So in that kind of scenario, even though we could get a 16% interest rate on it, we're not going to buy it, and that's the reason those tax liens have multiple years worth of back taxes on them.
Yeah, it's because nobody is buying them. So really, what is a good lien? Well, a good lien is a lien that's placed against any property that has use and value. If the property has any real value to it at all, then somebody is most likely going to want to keep it. And that's why most liens end up getting redeemed. And the nicer the property is, the more likely it is that a lien is going to redeem. So good liens are placed against properties. If we're buying liens, we're looking for those that are most likely to redeem. And that's because those that are not most likely to redeem are the ones that are against junk property, are the ones that are, that are undesirable. And that's why, if you're buying liens against, properties that have use and value, sure, a lot of them are going to redeem. Most of them are going to redeem. And you're going to earn a great rate of return, on a good, safe investment. But occasionally, if you're buying those kinds of liens, eventually when you do foreclose, it's going to be on a property that actually has use and value that you can turn around and sell for good profit.
Yeah, in fact, we put out our last monthly webinar that me and Shay did. We did it on the 10 steps needed to research property, research tax liens and deeds. And so you could probably go back to our YouTube channel, be one of our latest videos that we did, and go through it, and it'll actually go through kind of step by step the process that you're going to go through, things that you need to watch for. And with tax lien certificates, we do a lot less research. In fact, I'm surprised we haven't mentioned this, than we do with tax deed investing. Because with tax deeds, we're actually buying the property. We own the property.
Yeah, it takes a lot of research before you can do that.
Yeah, but with a tax lien certificate, that's not the case.
Yeah, in fact, on some liens, you can buy them. I mean, like we were talking about with rotation, when counties use rotational bidding, you don't even really get to choose the liens that you want. If your name comes up on the list and that lien is there, you have to say yes or no if you want to buy it. But the majority is that most of the time you can say yes though, and it's going to be a good investment, because most of the liens are.
Yeah, in fact, let's go back to Maricopa. Is this how it pulled up?
Yeah,
Go to Maricopa County real quick. See if it pulled up. It looks like it pulled up different. Click on preview. Yeah. So, you can start looking.
Oh, it's because I changed the face amount.
Yeah, well, yeah, it could went to the highest because it had a bunch more unavailable up at the highest.
Yeah. See, I went like that, and I went, basically.
Yeah, well, I had looked at a few of those ones on that.
Oh, here, let's just go like this.
So, we can look at a couple of these first tax liens here. Yeah. And usually they actually have a section where you can pull up the information. They're actually taking us all the way over. But we can see some of the information here within the county record. So we can, as we scroll down, we can see a bunch of information, but then we can also, up at the very top, we have other additional information. We can get maps. We can click on the deed, sketches. But as we scroll down, we'll figure out more about this property.
Yeah, we can see, it sold here, 228,000.
Yeah.
In 2019.
It looks like it has a value as we're scrolling down, of around 200,000 as far as the assessed value. Built in 2005. Looks like it's about 1,600 square feet. Let's see, how many is it? Six bath?
Yeah, 6 bath fixtures.
Huh.
Yeah. What we can also do though.
Also let's click on the map real quick as well. And this will pull us up the GSI map. And once we've gone through and reviewed the property value and we reviewed, the map information, we may check also some market value really quick. But at that point, we'll go ahead and invest on the tax lien certificate.
Yeah. So in other words, the lien that we're looking at here is a lien, that's like a $2,000 tax lien, and we can already see, that it's a property the county says is worth 200,000. We can see the house right here, and we know that it sold in 2019 for 228. In other words, your $2,000 investment is roughly 1% of the property's value, and so it's such a small percentage, that again, it's almost guaranteed to redeem. You could buy this. And it would be a safe investment because the numbers work.
Yeah, in fact, let's actually look this property up on Zillow real quick just to see what type of property value it's giving.
Yeah, actually, no, let me grab. It does have the image there, but let me grab that physical address.
And sometimes we'll check, Zillow just to see, because we did see that it sold recently, and there's a chance that it may have had some of that sale information, maybe photos of the property on the Zillow listing, and that could give us additional information into the property to see what it is.
284.
And look, it does. It wasn't sure if it would, but it did. And so now we can even get a better idea of what the property is, because now we have inside photos to kind of justify our investment. So that's the reason Shade said it was kind of a no-brainer. You know, we've got a $2,000 investment against a property that we have, you know, photos that are only a couple of years old, you know, nice community.
Yeah, it's
Good investment.
Yeah, it's a good investment. You know, there's not really anything that that can go wrong there, and chances are, you know, it'll end up redeeming. If it didn't, though, it's obviously, you know, it would be a home run.
Yeah, you know, and so really it's just a process of going through. Now that particular property may have high competition, so we may find something that has good value that's worth buying that we can get a better interest rate on.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we look at like a $400 property or a $600 property or something like that, and maybe we're able to find, you know, something that still has value that we could maybe get in a higher interest rate, because we would rather make 16% or 15% on, you know, a $50,000 building lot than making, you know, 2% or 5% on some nice home.
Yeah, this is a great example. So this is a $400 tax lien, right? And as we go to look at it, it tells us it's, you know, on a lot 580,000 square feet. You look at the value there; it's valued at, I mean, it looks like crazy, $2 million.
Yeah.
This is probably a partial lien of some kind, meaning
Definitely.
that it's not reflective of an entire year's worth of delinquent taxes. It's for a partial amount. So it's not even 1%. You know, it's much smaller than 1% most likely.
In fact, click on the maps. Oh, that might pull it up. I don't know.
Oh no, sometimes this thing. Let's see.
It's probably in the mountains somewhere. Maybe not. Oh wait, that might be prime.
Oh, that's a nice lot.
Yeah,
Look at
that's
that.
right in downtown.
Yeah, that's an impressive lot there.
Industrial area. Well, there's,
Yeah, that's a $400 lien.
yeah, sweet.
Yeah, that is impressive. Yeah, that's a partial lien. And that's where, you know, again, who's not going to pay their property taxes? Of course, somebody's going to pay the property taxes there, but if they didn't for whatever reason, you know, it would be awesome.
You know, let's just for fun, let's check like 120, the one below it, and just see if it's junk.
Unable to get the parcel data.
No,
So let's try
probably
another one.
good idea. It's junk.
Yeah, again, let's try some of these $124 ones. What the heck?
Pulling up.
Yeah, a bunch of
You know, usually we wouldn't buy a smaller lien like that in the Arizona sale anyway, because we're going to have to do the foreclosure. So, you know, we'll buy cheaper liens in a state like Florida or even South Carolina, where the foreclosure is done by the county, and versus an area like this where, you know, you buy a $5,000 lien. I mean, a $5,000 lien, you know, a $200 lien on a $5,000 lot. Well, it could cost you a couple of grand just to do the foreclosure.
Yeah, which is something that we want to take into account. I think this $700 one right here, let me enlarge that a bit here. You know, there's a $700 one right here. I think this one's a partial lien as well. You know, I mean, it's against this property right here. You know, that's on about a 10,000 square foot lot.
Yeah, and all Shade means when he's saying partial lien is just the property owner paid part of the property taxes. You know, maybe their bill was, well, in fact, we probably click here to see their tax bill. Right there.
To pay it or to view it? Oh, maybe we can just view it.
Oh yeah, we don't want to pay it.
It's actually something.
It's actually people have done. People have called us up before because they ended up going on thinking they were buying tax liens and paid off people's property taxes. Luckily, that we had them call back the county, and the county,
Yeah,
and, you know, gave them back their money.
yeah, those are, you know, those are all good examples. And I think, you know, if we're looking here, you know, when I was looking earlier, I think one of these that was still active here is a Walmart. Yeah, I think this is.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, it's a Walmart.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, and that's that one for, it's a $500,000, you know, lien, but it, you know, the property that it's sitting on
20
is,
million.
yeah, is valued at, you know,
19.3.
yeah, yeah, it's a $20 million property, you know, a shopping center there.
Buying liens on Walmarts.
Yep.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Usually Walmart's
Yeah,
good about paying them.
yeah, that's even their sketch there for Walmart. See that?
Yeah, you know.
Well, and that's why it'll most likely end up getting paid.
Yeah.
You know, that's just how liens
Could
work.
be an oversight, you know.
Yeah, yeah, most likely. And so, anyhow, oh yeah, we just basically got to these from the website. You know, we've got an online auction area there where we've got, you know, places listed and everything's in alphabetical order. So we use that. You know, we use that to navigate. We do it as well because it saves us time.
Yeah, so if you're interested in looking into more of our membership, you can go into our service section up there. We have our membership, which we talk about our membership program. Essentially, it's $39 a month. You can cancel at any time. It gives you access to all of our training, and then we also have a year option as well, where you can get it for $30 a month. But then, you know, I guess the only other thing would be the one day coming up this Saturday.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to join us for a full 1-day online training for just $49, you can register for that here.
Yep.
So right here. Other than that, though, thanks so much for joining us. We'll be sure to get these recordings out for everybody, and you're always welcome to join us next time as well.
Yep. Thanks again, everyone.
We'll see you later. Have a good night.
Appreciate it.